So this week we want to look at literature and mental health. That there is a nexus between literature and mental health. Um, so of course we will delve into number of theories, specifically theories that focus on especially psychoanalytic theories. So this session examines whether artistic expression stems from a wounded psyche or serves a proactive mechanism for maintaining cognitive equilibrium. So I want to see whether there is a nexus between the psyche um, and uh, and what we call um, artistic expression. So we'll explore how literature and art function as diagnostic mirrors for societal trauma, while debating whether the artist's unique sensitivity is a precursor to pathology or a protective shield against alienation in the modern experience. Yeah. So we want to see the nexus between the artist and the mental health issues. That's what we are saying. Yeah, that is this sensitivity just a way to shield themselves from the tough experiences in modern life, or it is a precursor to pathological issues, or a precursor to pathological issues. So we move on. So our ELOs, we will evaluate Freud's theory of sublimation, analyzing how artists transform internal neurotic conflicts into socially validated and creative literary works. Yeah, so we'll look at what Sigmund Freud theorized about the artist, then analyze the nexus between creative expression and dissociative states. Yeah, is there a nexus between creative expression and psychological alienation, or what we call dissociative identity disorder? Then apply psychoanalytic frameworks to matters the return. So our focus here is matters the return, and ensure that you have read The Return by Hisham Matter. I'm sure you have read The Return because it's one of the compulsory texts at the end of this particular semester. So let's now look at Freud, Sigmund Freud, and what he theorized on the artist and neurosis. Yeah, so according to Freud, the artist is an introvert. So he suggests that the artist possesses an introverted disposition, initially turning away from a reality that fails to satisfy their instinctual desires. There is some kind of displacement, that the artist is motivated by some kind of displacement. There are some things the artist wants to achieve in life, but they are unable to achieve. So because of this, they displace these desires, they displace this through writing. That because he cannot be a good speaker, they cannot be good speakers outside there. They will create characters who give very wonderful speeches. And through that, they are able to speak to the audience. So, like a neurotic, the artist retreats into a world of fantasy. However, unlike the neurotic who becomes trapped in their delusions, the artist possesses the unique capacity to find a way back to reality through their work. So this is not like a mad person. As they write, they are able to displace their negative emotions, and then therapeutically, they are able to survive and come back to their daily work. So that what he's trying to say is that if you find a writer writing so much about, oh, men are bad, men are perverted, men are immoral, men are what, this could be her own weaknesses. She's unable to handle men. So because of that, she creates characters and represents men as perverted. And she has what we call stereotypical, representation of men because of her experiences with men. So it's some kind of displacement. They displace, yeah, their desire, their weaknesses through art. That's what Freud is saying. Then sublimation of forbidden desires. A central tenet is the concept of sublimation, where the artist redirects raw, socially unacceptable instinctual drives, often rooted in the id, into culturally productive and refined creative outlets. So what the writer is trying, what Sigmund Freud is trying to say is that because the artist may want to kill, maybe this is a character who wants to kill a man or a woman, because of what this woman did against him. So, and he cannot do that because society forbids murder. They will be arrested. So he will create a character, a female character, and kill her. And kill her. Mm, and kill her. So if you find a work like Nawal El-Sadawi's God Dies by the Nile, yeah, you see, the writer creates Zakia, a female character, who by the end of the novel manages to kill the mayor. It's like Nawal El-Sadawi, there are some things he does not like about men. There are some things Nawal al-Sadawi does not like about men because of her personal experiences with men. But because society forbids her from killing men, she creates a character called the mayor, and then Zakia, who is now Nawal Sadawi herself, goes ahead to kill the mayor. And through that, Nawal el-Sadawi gets some satisfaction. Yeah. Of course, now she has killed her character, yeah, which is culturally acceptable. But killing men will be culturally unacceptable. And if you assess Al-Sadawi's life, she had very many bitter experiences with men. At one point, in fact, she must have divorced 3 times. And at the end, she ended up living a single life. Yeah, so you can see that through this, Sigmund is trying to say that through writing, the writer is able to release pent-up feelings, negative feelings, and actions that if she were to perform them, she would be arrested and end up in jail. So she ends up getting characters and is able to express those pent-up negative emotions. So neurosis occurs when these drives are repressed, whereas art occurs when they are successfully transformed. Then art as dreaming. So Freud compares the creative process to a child's play or an adult's daydream. So the artist uses their medium to fulfill ungratified wishes, yeah, often related to power, fame, or love. By externalizing these egoistic fantasies, the artist relieves the inner tension that would otherwise manifest as a pathological neurosis. So is able um, to express those negative wishes, those negative feelings and those negative wishes. There are some things we cannot do, as I've said. Maybe you wanted to be very famous, but you cannot. So you write a story about a famous person, and it can get published, and then at the end you get fame. There are some things that an artist cannot do, maybe because of their position in the society. But when they sing, yeah, or when they write art, they're able to express those wishes and later on become successful. So that's what we are saying. That's a kind of daydreaming. If an artist writes a lot, so Sigmund saw a work of art as the writer's dream. And in dreams, most of the time we dream what we cannot achieve during the day. So that if you dream eating, it's because you do not have food in real life. So most of the time, Sigmund says that we dream what we cannot get. And so by looking at a work of art, you will see the desires that the writer cannot achieve. Yeah, that mostly, and they come out unconsciously. And so if a work of art is full of, for example, sex scenes, it could be the writer has that desire for sex, but he cannot get it. Yeah, but he cannot get it. So it is displaced through a lot of sexual scenes in a work of art. So those forbidden desires, they come out through art. And the things we may not do in real life. Then we have the concept of the incentive bonus and aesthetic pleasing. So to prevent the audience from feeling repelled by the artist's private, potentially dark fantasies, the artist uses aesthetic form as a lure. So Freud calls this an incisive bonus or for pleasure. So this form of beauty disguises the neurotic origin of the work, allowing the audience to share the psychological release without shame. So he's saying that style is used to cover up the darker aspects, the darker aspects that the writer holds. Like for example, even when we say that the use of taboo is a style to emphasize, for example, immorality in that society. Is just a way of covering up the writer's what? The writer's weaknesses. The writer's weaknesses. Yeah. Yeah, that could really be the writer's weakness. Maybe he or she has a lot of desire for, using that foul language, and he or she derives pleasure, derives pleasure in using that foul language. Yes. And that's why but for high school mostly, we insist that writers should not do what? That for high school, writers should not, use a lot of taboo, because to a great extent, it tells you about what the writer enjoys, Yeah. Then reconciliation with the reality, but the neurotic is paralyzed by the conflict between their internal desires and the external world. The artist achieves a reconciliation. Yeah. So through the creation of art object, the artist gains the very things they initially lacked in reality. For example, honor and admiration. That's because the artist does not have that honor and reality. He ventures into these things, criticizing leaders, criticizing honorable people, and at the end, he will be recognized. He will get honor, for doing that. So at the end, the artist is able to reconcile with the reality. Even the one who sings love songs because he has never had love. At the end, when he becomes famous by singing his love songs, he will end up getting love. So even look at our singers today, like the singers of Bongo in Tanzania. Most of them will sing about love, love, but if you look at their private life, they are unable to love someone. They cannot love someone and get married. But at the end, they will get love out of that. So at the end, they reconcile with reality. So apart from Sigmund Freud and psychoanalysis, we also have the concept of dissociation. Writers like Howell 2024 comes out with 4 tenets of dissociation, the element of dissociation. And according to Howell, there is what we call traumatic attachment and betrayal. Howell emphasizes that DID, or dissociation, is often rooted in disorganized attachment. When a child's primary caregiver is simultaneously a source of fear, the child cannot integrate the loving and abusive versions of the parent. So to survive, the child dissociates, creating mental barriers to keep these conflicting realities separate. So you end up with somebody having several selves in one. Yeah. And when you look at The Return, if you have read The Return, you will discover that Martha's experience in childhood, the suffering the parents underwent under the Gaddafi regime, they caused certain dissociation in his life. And Martha has several selves. If you analyze his life, you will discover that Martha has several lives, several personalities in one. And this is what we are calling dissociative identity disorder or dissociation. So then we have the multicentric self. So moving away from the idea of single unitary personality, Howell argues that the human psyche is naturally multicentric. In DID, however, the boundaries between these centers are rigid and amnesic rather than fluid. So this fragmentation allows individual to keep traumatic memories encapsulated so that other parts of the self can function in daily life. So this person undergoes a lot of fragmentation. And sometimes this is a person who has the selves of the parents appearing. And sometimes, like Mata, because he loved the father so much, but the father was killed by Gaddafi, which actually exacerbated his trauma. You discover that Martha sometimes has the father self in him. Sometimes the father, just appears and even he talks through hallucinations and all that. And it's true that there are several selves in the life of Martha. So we are talking about several personalities in one person. That condition is called dissociation. Yeah, so what are the other tenets? We have dissociative defense or deficit. Hall distinguishes between dissociation as an active defense mechanism and a structural deficit, the inability to maintain a continuous sense of self. Yeah, so the character, cannot really progress. The self cannot develop normally. Yeah, cannot develop normally like others. They get stagnated and sometimes they feel so alienated with themselves. So this distinction is a vital for clinical fragmented internal communication. So this person cannot really progress well. You become so stagnated, and also there are certain symptoms that appear. They experience hallucinations. There are they change according to circumstances. They can change. You can find one person having the female self in them, the male self in them, the father self, the grandmother self, the teacher self, and it becomes so severe. It becomes so severe that these alters, they're called alter personalities, sometimes they communicate. There is a novel I read called Harare North. When you read Harare North, you find a character like Shingi having very many selves. And these selves are the ones that sometimes drive them to things like drug abuse, stagnation in life, and it's a very disabling mental health condition. And all these things are caused by trauma. They are caused by childhood trauma or othering conditions. When you read Fanon says that othering or stigmatization of difference, it's able to cause psychic collapse. And once the psyche collapses, other selves will find their way into the person. That's what Howell is trying to say. There's also a work by mm, there's a work called Silent. It's not Silent Song. It is called Silent Cry. Silent Cry, by a Japanese writer whom I've forgotten his name. In Silent Cry, we find characters having very many selves, very many selves within. And you see a character like Takashi has several selves arising from the traumatic experiences that he had in the past. Takashi made some mistakes in the past, where he had sex with the sister and the sister committed suicide. And so, because of that, Takashi is traumatized by so many experiences until the self of Takashi has gotten fragmented, into very many selves. And one of the signs of dissociative identity disorder in the life of Takashi is the search for self-punishment. He leads strikes at the universities and high schools, seeking for self-punishment, but people do not know that Takashi is sick. They think that he's a leader, but in truth, he has psychological problems. He has psychological problems, which is called dissociative identity disorder. So, does a writer a victim of all this? That's what we are trying to say. So, these are theory we need to apply to a work like The Return. If you look at Matters The Return, you discover that Matter has several selves in him because of the traumatic experiences he had in childhood. So you need to read Hisham Matters The Return, and you will see how sometimes the father self just comes and speaks to him through hallucinations and even through dreams. And so Matter has several selves in him. It is his self, and then we have the father self, he has the child self, and many other selves because of the traumatic events he has undergone as a result of political marginalization and othering in Libya. So according to Health 2024, DID is characterized by a fragmented consciousness composed of interconnected yet distinct subjective parts that remain facets of a single individual. So one individual, but different selves. Yeah. So contemporary research highlights a significant link between diverse social environments, specifically the experience of othering. So that this is what we call stigmatization of difference. When people are stigmatized so much, their psyche is likely to collapse. And then they will develop a pathological fragmentation, which we call dissociation. Yeah. So systematic social pressures possess power to fracture an individual's sense of self. Yeah. That when you experience a lot of othering, then what will happen is that, yeah, your self will be fractured. Yeah. Yeah, will be fractured. So this aligns with the observation of Franz Fanon, 1963, who argued that the trauma of racial and political marginalization can lead to profound psychic collapse and subsequent mental pathology among those pushed to the periphery of society. So that when people are otherized for a long time, the psyche is likely to collapse and other cells will come in. I've just given you the example of Takashi. Takashi in Silent Cry. I don't know why I forgot, but when I teach you theory in literature, we will now look at Silent Cry, and you will see how Takashi's self is fragmented by the traumatic events that happened to him, you know, after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There were political problems that made Japan to suffer a lot of issues. And because of that, the children who grew up in the generation after World War II, they had a lot of painful experiences. And so because of that, Takashi develops dissociative identity disorder. And now your assignment at this one, you must do it and present. You must do it and present. This is one of your assignments with reference to the tenets of Sigmund Freud. Write a paper on the psychoanalytic reading of matters, the return. So that is your activity, and this one you should present as part of your assessment. So other selves in the self, dissociation in matters, the return. So the other one, you use Sigmund Freud. Don't use the DID. Use Sigmund Freud for the return. But here, analyzing each of matters, the return, the text identifies the presence of alter personalities and foreign dwellers, which are hallmarks of dissociative identity disorder. So we are saying that when you look at Isham matter properly, yeah, the self, yeah, the self um, the self has fractured and has several other selves in him. So so the primary alter in Hisham's psyche is his disappeared father. So when the father disappeared, he was so traumatized and obsessed by the search for the father that the father's self becomes one of them. Yeah. So alongside his primary self, there is a Jabala, the father. So after internalizing the father's mantra of survival, Hisham begins to manifest Jabala's traits. Yeah. Sometimes he just behaves exactly like the father, performing the same types of manual labor and adopting his father's courage and stoicism. Yeah. Even in the philosophy, when he's talking about the philosophy he loves more in life, Hisham speaks exactly, he quotes the father's mantra in the book. So one of the persons alongside his primary self is Jabala. Jabala is in him. Jabala died, yes, but the way Hisham behaves when he goes to Libya, the father did odd jobs in Libya, but Hisham is doing odd jobs in England. The place is different, but the jobs he's doing, it is just exactly what the father used to do. He's reliving, he's reliving, um, he's actually living um, he's living his father's life. He's living his father's life. So that's why we are saying through dissociation, people are able to pick the traits meant for those people they hate or those people they love. So Isham describes this as an implanted presence that possesses a deeper knowledge than his own self. Yeah. He even says that, even he says in the book that that self is very much in him. That's the Father self. And it knows a lot about him. It knows a lot about him, even more than he knows about himself. So this other self in the self is called an alter. When you say alter, we are talking about the other self which somebody has attained as a result of dissociation. It is called an alter. And the alters come in when the self of an individual collapses because of othering or traumatic experiences. So this alter personality provides Hisham with the vivid sensory memories of the Abu Salim massacre and communicates through internal voices and cold mechanical tone that emerges during the confrontations with political enemies. At the end of the book, this self is able to make Hisham to be very prophetic. Yeah? He's able to see a vision of how the father was killed. And towards the end of the book now, Hisham is able to realize that the father was killed um, by Muammar Gaddafi. And this is something that all the investigations had not revealed. But through a vision, because of Jabala's altar in him, yeah, it's able to give him a vision, just a daylight hallucination. And he sees how the father was murdered and then burned, and the ash was thrown in the Mediterranean. So you can see that some prophetic gifts, some prophetic gifts are actually out of dissociative identity disorder. That's what you can see. Because in this book, when you read, you discover that Hisham is very prophetic because of the father's altar. So you can see that some prophets may not be prophets because of the Holy Spirit. Some people may be prophets because of ancestral altars. That's what we are saying, ancestral altar personalities. So there is a lot we learn through literature. And that's why we are saying when we apply theory in literature, you are able to create knowledge and learn a lot of things. And if you just look at the themes, style, and the mood and all that, yeah. So through the theory of dissociation, when you read Hisham Mata, you learn a lot of things. So beyond the father figure, Hisham also has a child self, yeah, that represents arrested development caused by trauma of exile. This alter personality frequently emerges regardless of Hisham's chronological age. So he is old, he's around 50, but the child self comes in, and it also manifests very, very strongly as an 8-year-old or a 15-year-old boy. Yeah? Yeah. So the child alter displays a specific linguistic habit. Sometimes the way he speaks, he speaks like that 8-year-old and a 15-year-old. And then it also makes them to thirsty for the Mediterranean Sea, because whenever when he was 8 years, he could go to the Mediterranean Sea because they live in Libya. Now at the age of 50, he still desires to go and look at the sea. Why? Because the child self pushes him. And he also likes I think he likes melons, the melons. He likes the melons. Why? Because of the child self that manifests. Yeah. So Martha's condition is framed not as a disabling psychosis, yeah, or schizophrenia, but as a specific dissociative response to political otherness. Yeah. That through othering experiences, we are likely to undergo dissociation. So there's something we need to be very keen on: othering, stigmatization. If we stigmatize children, if we stigmatize those we teach, if we stigmatize our friends, we are subjecting them to a lot of pathological conditions. That's one thing you should learn as a student of literature. That othering has the ability to cause pathological states like dissociation, like dissociation. Let me just do something here, like dissociation. So unlike the chaotic hallucinations of the psychotic, Hisham's internal voices are structured. So he experiences internal voices, just like prophets. Yeah? They have internal voices which they experience from an altar. And you see, for Christians, prophets will get them from the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit becomes an altar in them. And they cannot just get it without a lot of fasting. That fasting will destroy and fracture the psyche. And once the psyche is fractured, this person is able to receive other selves. Now, that's why so when you later we'll look at Close Sesame and you will see a man called Dirie. Dirie is very prophetic, and it's because he has an altar personality. Yeah, he has this condition called dissociation. So once you get dissociated, you get certain abilities, you hear voices, you hear voices, and all these things they come under mental health because um, these people they can do things which normal people cannot do. They are able to see things which normal people cannot see. And in the modern world, anything that transgresses the rational code, that transgresses rationality, is placed in the realm of madness and mental health. We are not saying this is insanity, no. But in the modern world, anything that transgresses rational reality is described as madness. So madness is not necessarily negative. Eh? Prophets are not normal people. They have undergone dissociation, as you will see in Hisham Matter. Read Hisham Matter's The Return. This is one of our primary texts. And when you read it, you will see these things. So Hisham's internal voices are structured, clear, tied to coherent personal and political history, functioning as a survival mechanism in the aftermath of Sten's sponsored terror. So he hears internal voices, and sometimes the late father, just comes and speaks to Hisham. And he tells him real things. Even Dirie in Close Sesame, it is the same. The late wife would just come and tell him that one of our sons is going to climb a tree and he will fall and break his leg. And it happens. And it happens. Yeah. So you can see the prophetic gifts, they are because of dissociative identity disorder. And our scholar here is Elizabeth Howell, 2024. If you get time, you can also read that book so that you get to understand, the whole issue of dissociation, the whole issue of dissociation. So that's the end of my lesson. And I've given you the assignment. The assignment is this one with reference to tenets of Sigmund Freud. Write a paper on psychoanalytic reading of matters the return. And you also need to present. This one should also be presented so that I get your full marks. If you have any question, you can ask. That's the end of my presentation. That is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, you can ask. So matters the return is very important. You can ask.
Yes, I'm in a noisy place,
Yes,
but I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, so my worry is that I still have a very, this week and next week, we'll still be having a very busy schedule.
So you are still at the funeral?
Yes, we are burying that is coming next week, Friday.
All right. Don't worry. As long as you have attended, yeah, like what you have
Yes,
done, this is very good. Just attend. What I want to do, we're now having two topics only. So that after that, I now give direction on the books you are supposed to read, and then we finish up the assignments. Because after the 10th week, you will have 4 weeks. The exam will come I think on the 14th week. So you'll have 3 weeks to finish the assignments and then prepare for exams. So, and that's why we don't want to stop. We want to finish because we now just have two topics remaining. And then we now come through, we see the assignments you are supposed to do. You do those ones, you submit, and then you focus on the core texts. The core texts are the texts where now the exam may be set. Those that are not on the core text, the exam may not be set there. So don't worry. Just I like what you are doing. You just follow it and then take some notes. If you want the slides, I can share with you. You take some notes, or you get some time. You go online a bit. But the what matters, like now the return. Just ensure that by the time you do the exam, you have read books like the return and the others on especially the core text, the core literary text on the course outline I shared with. If you don't have the right course outline, let me know, because I shared two major course outlines where I specified the core text. Not all books we have talked about will matter. Some of them are just for uh, formative assessment, but the core text on the course outlines are the most important. But thank you for attending. In fact, I'm happy. That's very good. It shows your dedication and commitment. Um, than somebody who is not having such a problem and does not even appear. That's how we know people who are serious. And we I appreciate what you have done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you have a nice evening. Tutaendelea kuongea.